But I have a prescription for Vicodin.
Well, then
No, you don't.
Fired.
Okay.
They fire first and don't ask questions ever.
Yeah, Josh,
That's
you
right.
had started. Wow. You should start it.
In fact, they don't even tell you that that's why they fired you. They come up with some other excuse.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Trail to Take, episode 5. Tonight we have, as usual, Zupan and Noah and myself, but we've got ourselves a guest today. Care to introduce yourself today?
My name's Sid. I'm the guest today. They've deemed me an expert on today's subjects.
You do you do not, or, oh my god, do you or do you not have an education in this department?
I do.
You go to college for this.
You do, in fact,
have
have
a
an
degree?
education. I am currently attending college to obtain more education.
What's the name of the
Oaksterdam.
Amsterdam? I'll look it up.
Imagine, because it's in Oakland, and it's named after Amsterdam. It's, it's like the capital.
That's
That's
Actually, a
exactly
hilarious name.
Yeah.
So tonight we're going to be talking about with our resident marijuana expert,
Yes.
drugs and products and the like,
Possibly the occult.
possibly the occult, psychedelics, and what have you. Sid, start us off. What do you got?
All right. So, I guess the most common drug of conversation is the big C, cannabis. Which brings us to Oaksterdam University, the world's first and oldest marijuana-focused college. They
How old is it?
let's see, what's this year? 2020. 12 years, I think. They started in like 2008, around then.
It's slightly surprising.
2007.
Yeah, 07.
Pretty new concept.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
But of course, this wasn't my introduction to the drug.
I would imagine not.
When I was in high school, my freshman year was the first time I ever tried it. I'll keep the story
Just paraphrase here.
somewhat short. Yeah, summarize.
Names,
I know,
places,
well,
ideas have been altered
I know
for
this.
the protection of
So
the
yes,
individuals.
long story short, bought an edible that my friend made. Didn't know what dosage it was going to be. Obviously, it was way too strong for someone's first time. And
And that young.
so he gave it to me earlier in the school day, and I had it in my pocket, and I was getting kind of paranoid, thinking like they're gonna search me for some reason because I was an idiot kid. So I decided that it would be better if I just ate it now. So I did that. Just ate the whole thing in the bathroom, and then when it kicked in, I tried to keep my cool. Just kind of walked around. Didn't really interact with people that much. My friend who gave me the edible was like trying to kind of coach me through it, but he was an idiot too. So,
Still is.
anyways, in sixth period,
This is
sixth period, I puked. I like about half of it up, and then so I went to the nurse. Nurse immediately knew I was high. She could tell just by looking at me. Starts asking me questions. Starts interrogating me. I get really nervous, keep denying everything, but start like shaking because I'm so like anxious that they're gonna.
Question.
Yes.
Why would you go to the nurse?
I was hoping to just play it off like I had the flu or something so I could get home.
Why not just walk home? I literally walked home. Walk home.
So my house,
Let you leave.
That's true.
that's
Mm.
They can't
Yeah.
just let you leave.
my house at the time was also pretty far away. Like it would have taken me probably a couple hours to get home if I just walked. It was like at least like 10, 15 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't really thinking about that. But basically, like after I threw up, I was like, oh god, I was freaking out. I was thinking I'm gonna
What
get caught.
period was this?
Sixth period out of 7.
Dude,
Yeah, I know.
you could have left him and like, oh, I guess they marked me absent for some reason. I'll
But
straighten
okay,
that up.
this is also the first time I've ever been high, and I'm like blazed out of my mind to the point where I can't even think.
problem-solving
Yeah.
part of your brain just does not.
So my plan is to go to
Anymore.
the nurse's office, pretend I have the flu, get her to call my mom. She calls my mom doesn't answer because she's at work or whatever.
Nice.
So I sit there and I'm
Comes
waiting.
phone call number 2.
Yeah. And then eventually the assistant principal comes in, starts interrogating me, asking me all these questions. And I'm like barely even answering anymore. I'm just like trying not to make eye contact, like just fucking shaking. He's all like shaking me by my shoulders, like trying to get me to tell him.
So awesome.
And then
The neighbor's Mason.
and then I just kind of laid back. I laid back on the couch I was sitting on, and I just started like like purposefully convulsing as hard as I could. Because I was like, if I just make them think that I'm about to die, then they can't be mad at me.
Okay, here's mistake number 2.
They called
Yeah.
911. They thought I was
Yes.
having a seizure. They brought me to the hospital.
Okay.
Yeah, the ambulance came, brought me to the hospital and everything. When I got there, I was almost home free. The hospital told the school, oh, he just had some kind of 24-hour virus. Probably, I'm sure he's fine. It was just a bad reaction or whatever.
Nurses sweating, trying to cover your ass.
Yeah, they told the school a cover story basically, and so I thought I was home free, but my mom was there. By that time, I'm sure like they called her work or whatever,
Yeah.
got her to actually come,
Same.
and she asked them specifically to drug test me because she could probably tell that I was high just by looking at me too. They did the drug test, came back and said I tested positive for marijuana, and by this point I was finally starting to come down. Awkward drive home. Mom didn't say anything. I didn't say anything.
I'm
And
wondering.
little did I know that at the time she was actually an avid weed smoker. I actually had no idea. Like she kept it a secret.
That's crazy.
years.
That's crazy,
So
actually.
I thought she was mad at me, but she actually wasn't really that mad.
I have
Secretly,
another
she was
question.
proud.
How
Her
was,
son was baller enough to do an edible at school.
how was the hospital ride? Like, cause I assume you were in an ambulance. Yeah. you
Yeah.
were in it. That had to have been kind of awkward. Were you just like laying there, like, what have I done?
Yeah, I was just laying there. I was laying there trying to calm down. I was still just like shaking. I was all shivery because I was kind of cold too. And I think the paramedic like said something to me. I don't know. It wasn't that bad. The paramedic was like, you're gonna be all right, dude. We're gonna bring you over there. We're gonna find out
Dude,
what's going on.
Dude,
I would be literally in like a
Bro.
pile of
Oh,
my
so
own
high.
sweat. I'd get covered in sweat.
drenched.
I'd be like, oh my god, like, what can I say at this point?
It's over.
Well, actually, I was starting to calm down by that point because I was thinking like, oh, now I'm in the hands of the hospital, and they have doctor-patient confidentiality, so they can't tell the school anything. So that's what I was thinking. I was thinking like I'm home free by this
Yeah.
point. It wasn't until my mom found out. So I thought she was mad. She kind of seemed mad. I think she maybe was a little bit.
I would be mad because like, you
because
just
I did
like
it at school.
did it at school.
That's
You wasted the ambulance's time.
She also-
I had to come home from work.
She's also an avid believer in the brain's not developed until you're 25, so you shouldn't do any drugs until then. So she would not have approved of me doing it that young. I was 14,
Yeah.
and she didn't. She lectured me a little bit.
Isn't
I think 14
That
is probably
is-
too young to second.
I mean, your
Yeah.
brain is still developing a lot.
isn't your
especially in
mother a
these ages.
psychologist?
She is a psychologist. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. So she probably knows
I
knows
think
what
she's
she's
probably
talking
A
about.
right on that.
psychiatrist or a psychologist?
Psychologist.
What's the difference again? Doesn't a
There
psychiatrist
is no difference.
There
No, there is.
is a difference.
Psychologists can only give therapy. Psychiatrists can prescribe drugs.
psychiatrists prescribe psychedelics healing.
Depends
No.
what state you're in
Really?
and what
Some-
country. Yeah.
I kind of said
No
that
way.
sarcastically. I didn't think that some
No,
states allow it now.
There are actually
I've
places where they
heard
allow that. Yes.
Incredibly rare instances of that.
Very rare
happening.
instances. Usually having to do with terminal illnesses.
Mm.
That's usually where the law is the most lenient on because what's the worst that could happen?
Extreme.
Yeah.
The ones I've heard about like extreme mental deficiencies, and they're like, well, it can't make it any worse. So
Mm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of psychedelics are actually legal in places like Mexico.
sure.
Something I've been really interested when it comes to psychedelics is the healing factor for it, like use as a medication. Remember Gwyneth Paltrow had that documentary on Netflix where the first episode they went down to Brazil to do shrooms.
Mm.
It's legal there, I guess.
I have heard of that. Yeah, yeah. There's been a lot of little episodes where people do that as an experiment. I mean, even Vsauce went and did ayahuasca, which
Yeah, he did.
impressed me. I was
Yeah.
like, damn, he went
Yeah.
for the big leagues right away.
Yeah, he did.
What is ayahuasca?
So ayahuasca is a compound made from two different plant extracts.
Mhm.
One of the plants floods your brain with THC. The other plant has an enzyme inhibitor for the enzyme that I said THC, didn't I? I meant DMT.
Oh, big
Sorry.
difference.
Okay.
We were
Yeah,
just
that's a little different.
We were just talking about weed. I got mixed up.
That's a little different.
One of them floods your brain with DMT.
Okay.
The other one inhibits the enzyme that digests DMT. So it makes it so that your brain can't get rid of the DMT anyway.
So
So
insane.
it just stays there
So
for
the day
hours.
you
It's
die-
usually-
Wow.
No,
Didn't-
well, no, it lasts for about 12 hours.
Yeah.
On
So
average.
which is
like-
ludicrous.
So I heard when you do DMT, it only lasts like 15 minutes. It's like really quick.
Yeah, because your brain
Yeah.
digests it and gets rid of it.
Well, your
Yeah,
brain makes
Okay.
DMT naturally
It does.
Yeah, yeah.
when you're sleeping, I believe.
means it can also dissipate it naturally as
dissipate.
well.
That's, well, yeah. I remember Joe Rogan saying like he does like DMT like all the time, but like isn't it possible for it to run out because your body, it's your
That's
body
a good
that makes
point.
it.
Will your body stop producing it if you take it all the time?
I feel like it'd have to be a
Um,
lot though.
I'm not sure, actually. I'm not sure about that. I mean, it seems logical. A lot of other drugs work that way. If they artificially produce a certain compound,
Yeah.
it reduces your
Didn't the
reduces
Native
your ability to
Americans?
naturally.
Didn't Native Americans do ayahuasca? Isn't that like the Native American kind of shtick?
I believe ayahuasca comes from the Amazon.
Or the
What you're
Amazon?
thinking is
Sorry.
like cactus, Josh, I
Yeah.
guess
Oh,
Peyote.
sure. Peyote. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yes.
Sorry.
Peyote
Sorry.
Is
Peyote.
legal on some on like
Reservations.
reservations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, usually only if you're a member of the tribe, though.
Well, that makes
You
sense.
don't let outsiders do it.
Yeah.
Well, I know people who like know people have friends who live on reservations and like
Mhm.
they let them come over and do it with them.
Yeah,
like
it makes sense.
it's
I mean,
really gonna stop them.
yeah, exactly. It's not like someone's
Paradigm.
going to track them down. But, yeah. Oh, so anyways, going back to the story I started earlier. So that experience scared me away from any kind of mood altering drugs for a long time. That just kind of turned me off to that whole concept and idea. I thought, if this is what it's like, then fuck that. I'm not doing that.
Understandably so.
So the rest of my and it probably actually benefited me. For the rest of my high school career, I didn't go anywhere near any of that kind of stuff. I managed to graduate without touching it since then. And then right after high school, I was in drum corps with Noah. I'm sure he's mentioned that before. He mentions it all the time.
Oh yeah, very. But I love drum corps. It's
I love drum corps too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good stories we
It's
both
really
have
fun.
from like that year.
For a
Yeah.
different time.
And then it was
perhaps.
right
Yeah.
after I got back from drum corps is when I decided to give it another chance because my parents had been smoking it a while and they were always just kind of passing the pipe, between each other while we were watching movies or whatever in the evening. So I decided to take a couple puffs and rest is history.
Yeah.
Because that's really the key is the environment you're in when you do these kinds of drugs makes a world of difference with the experience you have. High school is the last place you ever want to be when you're doing a drug like that. Honestly, I mean, yeah, whatever. I'm sure if you experience somebody can give me like a dick measuring story of like, oh, dude, I totally put I used to be high as a gay, but it's like really you're not getting your full potential out of it. You're not enjoying it as much as you could.
Yeah.
It seems like a waste to me.
I would
And-
agree.
Especially when you're doing it like during class. Like I never understood people that get, like got high during class.
Yeah.
Dude.
Why?
I don't know.
I'd be stressed the whole time, afraid like my teacher's like gonna find out and the police are gonna get called, drug dogs.
Yeah. The only place I can ever really justify doing it is my own home, other people's homes who are comfortable with it.
I think a lot of people do it there because they become like dependent on it. It's like addicted to a very small degree, but
Oh no.
Yeah.
I am actually on the train that weed definitely is addictive and it can
okay,
get
that's
people
surprising. I
addicted
didn't
to it.
expect that.
Yeah,
you could easily.
I'm not going to be one of those people
Dependent.
who says like, dude, you can't be addicted to it. Of course you can. You
Yeah.
can be addicted to
You can
anything.
get addicted to anything. That's
Sugar is the most addictive thing.
so
Sugar
Just-
is
Just
already
ever.
addictive.
Yeah.
playing devil's advocate here a little bit. The only problem I really have with marijuana is I think a lot of people who smoke it, whenever something bad happens or something stressful happens, they immediately go to smoke some weed or eat an edible or something like that.
Yeah,
And
'cause
I
they're
see that
dependent
kind
on
of like a crutch a little bit.
exactly. A lot of people use it as a crutch.
People do the same thing
And-
with alcohol,
Yeah,
with junk food,
that's true. That's true.
Oh yeah,
with sex,
YouTube.
with YouTube, the internet. Who
Like,
knows?
Yeah, just anything.
Tarkon.
Yeah, people can be addicted to anything that they enjoy.
That's right.
Anything you enjoy can become an addiction, regardless of. But the one thing I will say is you can't be physically addicted to weed, because I've experienced a physical addiction to things like caffeine and alcohol. For example, when I was younger, we used to go on vacation to Mexico, where the drinking age was much lower, so I was able to drink there, and I would take that opportunity to drink as much as I could. I would get drunk every night while we were there for a week or two. And then when we got back to the States, I'd go cold turkey, no more. And I felt the physical withdrawal symptoms and even the mental addiction. Like every once in a while, the thought would just randomly cross my mind, like some beer right now, you know? We just wash over. But I mean, I guess luckily, since my mom's a psychologist, she taught me to recognize those things and not think of them as much as because that's the problem is when you think of that as your own voice telling you that you need a
Yeah.
beer, because it's really not. It's the leftover alcohol in your system telling you need
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
It's not yourself.
It's true. Whenever I quit soda, anything like that at all, and my brain's like, oh, dude, I could really go for a cold soda right now. You know what I mean?
Dude,
But, like,
great.
I would get pissed off
Yeah.
about it, and I'm like, no, fuck that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna do that. Fuck you. I'm gonna
Yep.
sit here and feel good about not doing that. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? But
Yeah,
I think
that's the most
yeah.
important. That's the most important thing with addictions is just to recognize it whenever you
Mhm,
feel it,
mhm.
because it's not like it's out of your control. You
yeah.
know?
But
And I
think
have that feeling of like I want a beer, and then
Mhm.
I get like a headache, and I'm like, oh man, I know this headache would go away if I just drank some alcohol.
Yeah.
But you just got to be like, you got to think about it logically and look at it from an outside perspective.
Mhm.
Sure, I have a headache right now, and if I drank alcohol, it would go away.
Yeah.
But the whole reason that existed is because of the alcohol I drank before.
Exactly.
So if you put those two and two together, and you think, well, if I drink more alcohol now, I'm gonna have a headache later that's even worse.
It's a
Yeah.
vicious cycle.
I think technically weed is also addictive to the body, not just mentally. Because if you think about it, if you've been smoking a lot every day for years, right, and you immediately stop, well, what's going to happen? Well, first, your lungs are going to start cleaning themselves out. You're going to be spitting up black shit all the time. That's.
I've never spit up any black shit.
Have you ever stopped smoking for like a month?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've taken tea breaks every once in a while. I've never experienced any physical withdrawal symptoms from marijuana. Only mental ones where I feel like, oh man,
You are in your 20s also, too, so probably. But
yeah, I guess I might be more resilient.
I would say, well, from personal experience, whenever I would stop, the main difficulties I would have sometimes were falling asleep, because for a while I would use it to help me fall asleep.
yeah.
I've heard that a lot too.
Honestly, it's just mainly that. And I think it's important when you... Oh, just a minute. Dogs are howling. It won't pick it up on
It doesn't pick it up. Well, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Cutting this segment out and start since again. Did it last time too.
Yeah, as I was saying, when I would stop, the main difficulty I would have is falling back asleep, because I was relying on it to help me get into that state of
Mhm.
feeling tired, relaxed, and falling asleep.
That's where I was
So-
going with the physical addiction, because
Yeah.
that results in your body being worse off. I think
Mhm.
that's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. I guess, but like for me, like it wasn't to the point where like I couldn't sleep. It would
Yeah.
just take longer for me to get to that state. And I think it's important when you do things like weed, you should always take breaks
Yeah.
and make sure, like mentally and physically,
Yeah.
like you're still fine. You know, you don't feel like withdrawals, or you don't
I
feel like
agree.
mentally you want to like keep
And I
doing it.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Also, I mean, just the way that we use these kinds of drugs and our mentality when we use them is also a pretty important factor.
Hmm.
Like how he was saying earlier, how a lot of people use it as a crutch.
Yeah.
That's an unhealthy mentality to get into. If every time something bad happens to you, you think I need to get high or I
And
need
if
to get
you
drunk.
don't, you're like, oh God, it's even worse now that I haven't
Yeah.
smoked. It's like,
So that's a bad mentality.
Goes all
What I was taught like by my parents, who I think I see as very responsible pot smokers.
mhm.
They're very productive members of society, regardless of them smoking weed every day, literally.
Yeah.
But they both explained to me that it's not something to cheer you up when you're feeling bad. It's something to celebrate when you're doing well.
Mhm.
Like for example, if you're unemployed and you need a job, then don't smoke weed to feel better about being unemployed. Go find a job first, and then after you've found the job, celebrate that triumph by smoking weed.
It's all about having a disciplined mind.
Yeah.
You should only do these things like once you've done something accomplishing for the day. Like you went to work,
Mhm.
or you went to school, or you or like you're a musician, you wrote a song
don't
and
think
like you
it's-
released it.
Did
I don't
some
think
chores.
Did some chores.
I would say it's hardly ever healthy to do any kind of these mind-altering drugs first thing in the morning.
Mhm.
Oh sure.
Oh
That's one of the most unhealthy habits a person can get into is
That's just because you're pretty much at that point always in the state of being perpetually high.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And that makes you even more like dependent on it.
Yeah.
There are probably exceptions. I mean,
Mhm.
if
some-
you can still be just as productive
Yeah.
while you're high as when you're sober, then you might be able to convince me that it's okay for you. But
Well, that's what I was thinking
But I
when you
mean-
guys were talking about the whole like
No
like
EDM.
only do it after you've done something productive. Like I could see somebody who isn't one of the people that get couched by it, and they're just like, okay, well, I just smoked a bunch of weed, and now I'm gonna go do every single drawer on the list, and then I'm gonna.
yeah,
you know
there
what
you
I mean?
go. Yeah, like
If
for
you-
example,
If you're that kind of person, I don't see a problem with
I mean,
it.
I have done that before. Like, although I try not to make a habit of it. Like I can do like manual labor when I'm high.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I have nothing to do on a particular day, except maybe do some digging in the garden or something, or
Mm.
whatever, walk a car or something like that, then sure, I might get high while I'm doing that, but that doesn't make me like work less hard or slower. Personally,
You know, I saw an interesting study.
it may make me slightly less coordinated. That's why I wouldn't do any work that needed me to use my brain while I was high.
Yeah.
Yeah, like anything requiring like data or
Yeah. At least the
or
math
reading.
part of your brain for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, things like that, or repetitive actions where it's easy to make a small mistake.
You know,
I would say
I work on spreadsheets a lot.
I saw an
Now
interesting.
I could never do that high.
Oh yeah.
Working on spreadsheets.
Yeah, numbers, dude, crazy.
Yeah.
I saw an interesting study that took a large amount of 75-year-olds, and it looked to see how often they smoked weed first. And there were like three categories. There was the category of not at all. There was the category of like a couple times a day, and there was the category of like all the time throughout the day.
Mhm.
And they looked at like how lazy they are, right? And the ones that smoked weed every once in a while in the day were really well off because they were working out constantly more than any of the other ones. They had a regiment, so they would like pretty much always do it. The ones that got high a lot were still pretty good, but the ones that didn't, that was categorically the ones that were doing the worst. And they tried to explain it as like, well, these ones are feeling better, their ailments are lessened, so they're able to do this more. You know what I mean? Which
Yeah.
is interesting.
It can ease pain.
Yeah.
And that actually ties back into the physical withdrawal. A
Uh-huh.
lot of people, it creates the illusion that there is a withdrawal if you
Mhm.
have chronic pain,
Yeah, that's
that you're
true.
using it to treat. Because really, if you have chronic pain and you use marijuana to treat it, and then
Yeah.
you stop smoking weed and now your chronic pain comes back, you can't really try to pretend that that's because of the weed. Like
pain was always there.
pain was there
Mhm.
before.
Yeah.
Like for example, someone with arthritis who smokes weed all the time, and then when they stop smoking weed, they suddenly get all like cranky and irritable,
Yeah.
because their arthritis is acting up now.
Notice that, yeah.
Mhm.
You could say they're addicted to weed, but I mean,
They're addicted to the solution for their arthritis.
exactly. If they were on Vicodin, they would be
Vicodin.
much worse off.
Would be, yeah.
That's an interesting question.
Right.
What
Vicodin's
about
much more addictive?
What about someone that has an ailment, but it's not necessarily physical? So an example would be, let's say there was someone who's just like the biggest asshole you've ever met in your whole life, right? Everyone can imagine one person, they're like, fuck that guy right now.
Oh yeah, I got him.
So imagine that guy starts smoking weed, and all of a sudden, he's super chill, right? But whenever he stops smoking weed, he's the biggest asshole in the world. Now, from the outside looking in, if you'd known that guy just as long as he's been smoking weed, and all of a sudden he stopped, you'd be like, wow, weed makes this guy an asshole as he's going through withdrawals. You know what I mean?
It
Like,
would seem that way.
it would seem like from the outside looking in, you'd be like, okay, smoking weed, not asshole. Oh,
But
oh,
also,
yeah.
I would just like to say that I think that type of person could only exist in a cartoon. I don't think those people exist in real life.
I think that definitely
People
exists.
who are assholes but then become nice when they smoke weed.
Uh-huh.
I've never met one.
Well, let me give you an example. A lot of people get like totally couched when they're smoking weed,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
It's kind of hard to be an
Okay.
asshole if you're completely couched.
That's right.
I mean, maybe I guess, but
You can still be an
in,
asshole.
yeah,
But
in my experience, when people smoke weed, they just become more exaggerated and like less inhibited versions of themselves, similar to alcohol. It's like truth serum almost.
Yeah. What do you
Like
think?
I've had a friend who was an alcoholic before,
Mhm.
and at first it seemed to me like it reminded me of like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where it was
hey,
like,
I know who we're talking about.
Yeah.
How you
yeah,
doing
like
out
that.
there?
yeah,
Dylan,
We all
yeah,
know.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously, what the
Yeah.
fuck?
Get off our YouTube channel.
You know who you are.
Yeah. But anyways, so yeah, he seemed like a different person when he was drunk. than when he was sober.
Yeah.
And the guy he was when he was sober was super nice and fun to hang out with. The guy he was when he was drunk was just the most obnoxious, inconsiderate, violent, aggressive, angry person you'd ever meet. And
Okay, I don't like
But-
him. That's
but-
a little harsh. That's a
but-
little on the harsh.
No, I would
it's
agree with
accurate.
Sip here, but the thing
Yeah.
is, I don't think I really ever knew him much when he was sober. It was either
Because he was
the
never
Thai
sober.
version,
that's
or
true. Yeah, I
called
I
when he was
hung with him
Thai.
more when we were younger. You guys didn't really meet him until after he had already kind of become an alcoholic again.
Yeah, that's right.
Whatever.
He had multiple alcoholic stages that he kind of went into,
I mean,
but
listen, he's not a great person. He's violent. Like, I've definitely met more violent people. He's never even, like, pushed me or anything.
I think you guys
Have you
saw
ever
him
put
the
his
night.
hands on any of
so
you?
yeah,
The
so
last night Sid and I saw him, he was kind of violent.
So yeah,
And
when
his alcohol.
when you guys were there, he would usually kind of keep it on the down low,
Uh-huh.
and he wouldn't drink as much. I think that was because of his mom. So his mom was the one enabling him to drink,
Yeah, that's true.
and so when it was just him, she would let him drink as much as he wanted. When it was just me and him, she would also let him drink as much as he wanted because we'd been friends longer. But when you guys were around, she was like, "All right, maybe we just like cap it off at like one or two, you know."
Yeah.
That makes
So
sense.
so she tried to keep him under control.
Yeah.
But yeah, I saw him when he would get like really blackout drunk, and he was not
Right.
he was not a good person. In fact, I mean, if you want to hear a specific story,
I think we should skip that.
Yeah,
I think we should skip it.
what?
I think we should skip that.
Okay, yeah.
Let's move on.
I just heard him being an absolute dick
Yeah.
to his mom, basically, and guilt tripping her, threatening to kill himself
Uh-huh.
unless he bought her alcohol.
Yeah,
I,
Well,
or she bought him.
that's alcoholism.
So,
I never,
Anyways,
never met a pot smoker like that.
Yeah, me neither. But my point with this story was
oh,
that I eventually started to realize by the end of our friendship that the person he was when he was drunk was him.
yeah.
That was the real him.
That's deep.
And the person that he was when he was sober
This-
Mhm.
was his facade. That was him keeping it under wraps. All that anger and frustration and that was all inside him. He just kept it down.
Yeah.
He shoved it down,
Yeah.
and the alcohol just brought it up. And he even told me that, and I didn't realize it until way later.
Mhm.
He told me alcohol is truth serum, and it wasn't until months after we even like stopped hanging out that I realized that's the true him.
Well, okay, this is what I was getting at, actually. It's a perfect example when I was talking about that asshole who smokes weed in the sun when we chill, is because a lot of people aren't just assholes for no reason. I mean, it seems that way, but the large majority of them have, like, had something traumatic or something along those lines that, like, it's hard for them to work around, you know what I mean? And a lot of people just aren't fully mentally there, especially in today's day, so they're like, it's like a brick wall for them, so they're just perpetually an asshole. But something like weed or another drug like that, not really alcohol as much, but something like that can really help them break through into that. So that's why I could see. I mean, I've known people who are definitely not maybe not the biggest assholes I've ever met, but definitely like not very nice human beings who were much more reasonable to talk to.
Okay, so I have met people who were a bit of an asshole, and then once they started smoking weed, they became a lot nicer.
Yeah.
But not necessarily only when they were high. I think it actually, like, because it changes your perspective. You don't just forget that. It's not temporary. The perspective that you have when you're high stays inside your subconscious and your memory even when it wears off and you're sober later. So the only time I've ever seen that happen, it's usually a very gradual and slow transformation over the course of months or even years.
Mhm.
And it's usually not directly correlated to when they're smoking weed. It's just the fact that they have or that they do can often make their their perspective change, in my opinion.
Well, earlier you mentioned how you only smoke. You only think it's appropriate to smoke in your own home or people's homes or chill with it.
Yeah.
What do you think about places where it's acceptable to do it in public, like Amsterdam? What do you think about that?
I've never been to any of those places. The only places I've ever been are where it's either illegal or it's like a don't ask, don't tell situation where you got to keep it under wraps.
Mm.
So
But it does happen
yeah,
in those places.
I mean, if it were up to me, anywhere where you're allowed to smoke a cigarette, you should be able to smoke weed.
Okay.
That would be my opinion.
Well, that's kind of how it's like in Amsterdam.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just don't think that it's a proper form of protest to just like go out in public and smoke weed right now,
Oh, sure.
because you'll just end up hurting yourself and ending up in jail.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
weed
that'll happen.
has kind of fallen off the radar really lately. Like, I remember when it was like getting pretty damn big in 2010 when people were like, okay, well, we're gonna start like demanding that politicians let people smoke weed. It's like, okay, it sounds reasonable, and then like COVID, Black Lives Matter, like it just kind of see like it's like not even really registering on the radar right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has taken the backseat. It's not a high priority.
There's
I
bigger
would-
fish to fry.
I would say the reputation of weed has gotten a lot better. Like you have even like Trump,
I
who
agree.
was on the Republican side.
Yeah.
Even he's like, you know what? I'm not gonna like federally like change it, but I think states should at least be able to decide if they want to legalize it or not.
Well, if he wants to do that,
We
then
do.
he should federally change the law.
Well,
Have it removed
this
from the
is-
controlled substances list.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
you
yeah.
can't be arrested by federal agents for having it in the state where it's
It
legal.
should be
Yeah,
It's not that easy.
automatic
From
and off
his-
the law's eye.
From his perspective, also though,
I
he's
understand it's
someone
not that
who's
easy. Congress would probably fight him on it,
Yeah.
he's
like they do on
someone
everything.
whose older brother became a pilot, but then like went to alcohol so much that he just became a drunk. Like Trump has never done a drug according to him. He's never drinking anything ever. Like so, like,
You
I
really
don't
believe that?
I personally
He's definitely
yeah.
done cocaine. Come on.
Trump was alive during the 80s,
Show
dude.
me
It's
a
over.
picture of
He
him.
was rich in the 80s. Every rich person
Rich in the
80s
80s,
did lines.
Did coke in a sports car off someone's tits.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what you do.
I mean, what is Coke really but like really, really strong caffeine?
Well, it doesn't matter. It's
pretty much.
not what it is. It's the fact that it
Yeah,
exists.
yeah, I guess that's true. But I mean, obviously, he would never let
Controlled
proof of that surface, or else it would
No.
ruin his
Yeah,
reputation.
he even drinks,
Obviously not.
he even drinks the bad soda, diet soda. Like,
Yeah, he does drink diet
I
soda.
mean,
Any soda is a bad
Makes fun of
soda.
people who drink diet
He
soda
does.
on Twitter,
which
Huh?
is
and then
funny.
proceeds
Yeah.
to drink it himself.
Yeah,
It is hilarious.
because he's laughing at himself. And people are getting triggered about it. I remember
Yeah.
that. They're like, he just said everyone that drinks diet soda is no. But
I was just
no.
like,
But there are a bunch of people that actually got triggered there. Like they were like, "Oh, he just called me fat because I drink diet soda." And then like there's a picture of him drinking diet soda, and he's like, "Well."
Get there.
it's funny, yeah. Well, because I mean, diet soda is a whole different issue. Diet soda.
Oh yeah.
Soda is an issue.
Soda, diet soda,
it is.
all soda is
especially,
bad.
especially the
Diet
diet
Coke.
variety.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think last thing I want to touch on with this subject is legalization of other drugs, psychedelics, narcotics.
Uh-huh.
Like what's their stance on that? 'Cause I feel like we're all like a little different.
Yeah.
Why don't you start, Sid? Opinion on that?
Personally, I am a classical libertarian, so I don't believe that any drugs should be illegal for people to ingest themselves. If they're above the age of whatever we deem to be smart enough to make those kinds of decisions, they should have the right to put whatever they want inside their body. They should also have the right to refuse anything being put inside their body against their will. But that's a different issue, but it's along the same vein. Besides
Could
the
the
same
state,
yeah.
could the state mandate those drugs then, so it's not just like
So that's what I'm saying.
okay.
No drugs should be mandatory to take, and no drugs should be mandatory not to take. It should be
Why would-
everyone's
Well,
decision.
what I'm asking is like, all right now there's a lot of drugs like LSD. Like some people make it using rat poison. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
bad for you.
Yeah.
So
Or
if
are
that's
you
all going to
asking
be
about
legal,
regulation?
yeah, that's what I said. I said should the state regulate it then at that point?
Oh, okay.
You said
Well,
mandate.
you
That's
said
that's
mandate,
incorrect.
Well, we can check the records.
You said it.
It doesn't matter.
Well,
State,
facts.
there's
I know
no
what you
state
meant.
mandated drugs.
So yes, you meant regulate. Yes, I do believe that that drugs should be regulated by the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration.
Mhm.
You know, that's their job.
It's in their name.
They
Okay.
should make sure that all drugs are chemically pure
Uh-huh.
and perform as advertised.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that would be the major benefit of legalizing these things is that
I agree.
when you have a black market, you don't know exactly what you're getting.
Yeah.
If you have these things legalized and regulated
Mhm.
and like tested, like whenever you buy like weed from a dispensary, it's tested. You know the exact amount of THC, CBD. You know everything about what you're ingesting.
Yeah.
I thought they weren't tested. I thought that was unregulated.
No, it's regulated to all hell. Like
Very
when,
Is it now?
when you ever buy something from a dispensary, you'll see that little California weed sticker.
Yeah,
that
actually-
means it's been tested, and you can see the test
Okay.
result.
Yeah, it is. It is required for all cannabis to be lab tested in California.
I think what I'm
lot of
getting at
states
is
actually.
it didn't used to be.
It didn't used to be. No.
That's
That's
okay. So I didn't know
It
it
was a
changed.
so yeah, when it first became
4 or 5
recreationally
years
legal.
old rule.
Yeah. Also, I mean, not everyone follows the regulations.
Sure.
Like, there's some ghetto dispensaries.
Oh
in,
yeah.
In some pretty.
Avoid these.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, usually, like these ghetto dispensaries don't pay taxes, so then like the feds just roll in and take it down anyway.
Yeah,
but
but
It's, yeah,
Yeah,
those
I
are an
mean,
issue still.
yeah. If I'm being honest, like I've utilized these dispensaries
Cheap.
because they're cheap. They don't charge tax, and
Yeah.
and they don't ask questions.
So,
That's how you wrote a business. Right there.
But yeah, every once in a while you try to go back to the same dispensary because it was good, and then it's just like a boarded up, abandoned building now. That's the problem with those.
so my opinion on should drugs be legal, I think there's a lot of drugs I don't like, and I wish they didn't exist. But seeing
Nothing you
as
can do about that.
there's nothing you can do about it, so I guess we might as well just do what we did with cigarettes and make it legal, but charge too much.
I agree.
And then that way people just won't do it as much, and then we can be like, we're the generation that ends crack cocaine. All right, you know what I mean?
They already tried that with cigarettes.
In
It doesn't
fact,
work.
I would
Works.
It
even
doesn't work.
Kind of works.
Absolutely
I
not.
would even
There are less chain smokers
Not-
now
I
than
would even
ever.
argue that
That's-
the same thing
no.
could apply to
Absolutely not.
firearms. I mean, the same logic at least.
Oh, sure.
That like, sure, like we can wish philosophically that nuclear weapons didn't exist, but they
I don't
do.
want
They're not they're not beneficial to humankind
No.
at all, but they do. You can't uninvent them.
That's true. It
We
feels
Oh.
bad.
You can't uninvent crack either.
Listen, we've only
Yeah.
we've only, to my knowledge, used nuclear weapons twice offensively, and it did end World War II.
Yeah,
I think those.
but now more countries have nuclear weapons.
Yeah, but we can shoot them down. Like, nukes are like zero priority for me. I don't even care anymore. Like,
I
if
mean, everyone
aliens
has
come, we
them.
can use them.
Could we?
Maybe.
Okay,
Maybe. You think they can't shoot them down?
so I pulled up a little study here on
Just, like,
like
turn 'em around.
if making cigarettes more
Mm.
expensive, which is what states have been trying to do and decrease consumption.
Uh-huh.
According to the CDC, a 10% increase in the price reduces cigarettes consumption by about 4%.
Wow, 4%.
Full 4%.
You know how many people smoke cigarettes in this country?
So
It doesn't do anything.
to be completely honest, I don't really care how many people smoke cigarettes. Nor do I care how many people smoke weed or drink alcohol
Yeah.
or do heroin or do crack or anything.
Mhm.
I don't care if they do that. It's their decision.
Well, that's because you're not looking at it from the economics point of view, where your taxes go to their lung cancer treatments.
Well, you have no control over what your taxes go to anyway. Who
Yeah,
cares?
taxes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I mean, that's one avenue it could not go to.
True. I don't think
Doesn't
tax-
matter.
so are
don't
you
think taxes
arguing
would
that
decrease
these
That's not the issue.
hospitals should stop treating people with lung cancer if they smoked?
No, I'm saying that 4%. I'm saying that 4% off of cigarettes.
Wait.
I'm
I
saying
thought,
care
I
if
thought
people
we
smoke.
had privatized healthcare in America. We're not socialists, are we?
We do have free healthcare.
What?
What?
We totally do not.
We have.
I pay for my healthcare.
Yeah, you pay for your healthcare. Okay. We have poor.
Where is this free healthcare?
we
that
have
I should be
we
getting?
have poor
Who
people.
gives me that?
We have poor people healthcare. They will test
Okay.
drugs on you, but it is actual healthcare that you pay
That's-
for with
that's
your
different.
taxes.
That's different.
How is that different?
Because that's not.
So
Like,
I don't think
okay.
that's as correlated to the drug problem as it is just with the economic and governmental problems that we have. Like our government doesn't need to be spending money on crackheads. Crackheads have made their decision. I don't like.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I hate them or I wish they didn't exist,
Uh-huh.
but I also have no respect for them, and I don't really think they deserve any sympathy necessarily.
It's going to be a lot easier to try and limit the amount of people on a drug than trying to limit people. Like, people are always going to be like, oh, but they're dying. We have to give them your money. Like, you're literally, like, you are against the mob on that one. But the mob
So,
that doesn't like drugs,
when
so
we when
you
we
can
get
work
into
that.
these kind of corner cases, we're getting into also the medical industry. The
Yeah.
medical industry also has a multitude of issues
Okay.
that need to be fixed,
Sure.
in my opinion.
Anyway, I agree with Sid on the drug legalization thing.
Yeah,
The best argument for it is my body, my choice. Because then
Yeah,
you
that is
can-
a good
you can-
argument,
Yeah,
huh?
like seriously, like every time I hear that, I'm like, okay, legalize every drug, and they're like, no, that's crazy. I'm like,
yeah.
Legalize
my
is
body,
my
my choice.
I agree,
Yeah.
but like, 'cause, like, I think like whatever you like the government, whatever you do on your own property is no business of the government as long as you're not infringing on other people's rights.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a different story if you're going out hurting people while you're on a drug.
That's right.
Although I don't believe that those crimes should be looked at any differently than crimes that were done by sober people. I
I mean,
don't
crime's
believe,
a crime.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't even believe that the DUI is even a relevant concept when it comes to a philosophical level, because the person who decided to ingest the alcohol that they knew would make them impaired at
Okay.
driving,
Okay.
they took that responsibility upon themselves when they got behind a wheel. The same way everyone else takes the responsibility when they get behind a wheel while they're sober. The same way they take that responsibility upon themselves. If I'm a good driver, I will avoid accidents. If I'm a bad driver, I might kill someone.
Okay. I
Yeah,
think
but
I have
regardless of
I have
any
a pretty
substances
big
that are
wrench.
inside them.
I think I have a pretty big wrench to throw into that one.
If you're bringing up statistics, then
I'm not bringing up
okay.
statistics.
Okay, go ahead.
What I'm going to bring up is the fact that when you are drunk, you believe you can do things you can't. That's why the internet's so funny.
So how does the
hold-
DUI change that at all?
Slow down
Okay,
a
sorry.
second.
Finish your thought. Go ahead.
So my point there is,
Yeah, get these statistics out of here, Noah.
yeah, we don't do
Back-
statistics on this show.
Feeling.
Get this out of here.
Get out of here.
Um,
Bring it up.
He did sound a philosophical.
You realize that making
So-
things illegal doesn't stop people from
Now hold
doing
on,
it, right?
hold on.
Okay,
So
let me
here-
have a
hold-
machine gun.
Get this damn sentence out
Right.
here. Okay,
Finish.
so people try and do things they know they can't when they're on alcohol, or they think they can do it, but they can't. People on alcohol think that they can drive. They really do. They think that they can still drive like everyone else because they're drunk. Their sense of reality, what's good and bad, has been slightly warped to the point where they think that'd be okay. The reason they don't do it is because, like, okay, but if I swerve a little bit and a cop pulls me over, I get a DUI, and that's
You're
pretty
going
bad
to
news.
jail.
And I'm going to jail. They might take my car. I have
Yep.
a job. It's pretty bad news bears. So
Felony.
they're not thinking I'm going to run somebody over and do something horrible. It's going to get me in jail for a long time because of that. They're thinking I'm going to swerve slightly or miss a stop sign I didn't know was
Yep.
there, and then I'm going to get pulled over, and then my life gets fucked. That's their mentality of why they don't want to do it. Therefore, and in reality, they might have just hit somebody, but that's why I think that it's good we stay on top of that.
So you think people should be ruled by fear?
I think that's a good law that keeps people from dying.
I mean,
I-
a lot of people.
I disagree with that on a very fundamental level.
I mean, if someone's drinking and driving, it's usually because they're already an alcoholic and they've probably been doing this more than once. I feel like this is not something that happens. It's a one-time thing for a lot of people.
That's a
I
good
feel like it
point.
happens more. I feel like that's why it's important we have a DUI card.
I feel
that
like the
people
logic
doing this.
I also feel like the logic that you mentioned at first kind of debunks your second point.
Yeah.
Because when you're drunk, if your decision making skills are impaired,
Okay.
then why would like an extra hard slap on the wrist if you get caught make it worse somehow?
Well, it's not a slap on the wrist. It's you go to
it-
jail.
Yeah, you go to jail.
That's more than a
It's-
slap on the wrist.
Yeah,
It's a felony
it's,
charge.
It's pretty bad news
So,
bears, and
but-
even
Do you
but
want
you're-
a felony charge?
But you're drunk though. So
Yes.
you're drunk, your decision making is impaired.
Yeah.
You not only think that you're a good enough driver to do it despite being drunk,
uh,
but you also think you're somehow going to get pulled over.
like I said,
doesn't
you
make
think
sense.
you're a good enough driver not to do anything horrific like hit somebody or anything like that, but you're worried that you might cross a line, which is perfectly possible. I mean, anyone could be driving sober and accidentally go over the line because they get distracted or something.
Mhm.
You get pulled over, and now all of a sudden your life is a wreck and you're fucked over. That's what they're worried about. That's why people who drink, the ones that don't drive, that's
So-
why. They're not worried about actually hitting somebody. It's off their radar. They're worried about getting in jail.
In my own experience, from what I've observed,
Uh-huh.
I haven't found that to be true. People who are going to drink and drive do, regardless of the consequences. They just do it.
Well, then they're going
They
to have
either
their
do it or
car
they don't.
impounded and have their license probably revoked.
And then at that point, they won't be doing it.
Except they probably won't.
Why not?
Because
Well, that's the
odds of
great
them,
thing.
the odds of them getting pulled over or getting into an accident are actually much lower than you'd think. But that's because
Well, they
they
do.
only record the DUIs who get drunk, who get caught.
Yeah.
They only record the DUIs who get caught.
Uh-huh.
They only
when you look at
record the
statistics-
murders that the person gets arrested.
Exactly.
People get away with murder.
You don't hear
What-
about the murders people get away with, and you don't hear about the millions of people who drive drunk every day and don't
Yeah.
hurt anyone and don't get pulled
Okay,
over.
so that's the great thing. If you're driving drunk every day, that's not good. But here's the thing: you've basically mastered the art of drunk kung fu, and now drunk fu. So now you are one of the ones that has never been pulled over and DUI'd because you've never made a small traffic mistake that was worthy of a police officer pulling you over. Therefore, the odds of you personally running anyone over while drunk are astronomically lower than people that haven't been doing it for as long. It's like the gauntlet. Like
So
it's
what if
the
he
gauntlet.
gets? I mean, so what if that guy gets pulled over at a checkpoint, and they give him a breathalyzer, and then he goes to jail for the rest
He
of his
is
life.
now the
No.
rest of his life.
He doesn't go for he goes to jail
He dies. They shoot him.
Court
Firing
hearing.
squad.
He has a DUI on his record for the rest of his life.
for
Yeah.
10 years.
You have now failed the
Really? Only
gauntlet.
10 years?
California, it's 10
Yeah.
years. That's still a
You've now
decade.
failed the gauntlet.
That's decade.
But no, I'm saying, what if it was just a checkpoint? So he's literally never made. I mean, obviously this is unrealistic because people make traffic mistakes just when they're sober all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either way, but I've never
There's still
gotten pulled over
consequences.
personally. Not once in my life have I ever gotten pulled over.
Mm.
Well, lucky you.
But I've also never driven under the influence
There you go.
because I know the consequences.
Yeah. Then
And
you
I'm-
just prove Zupan's
not
point.
an
The
idiot.
consequences
You
are
literally just said it.
you get a DUI.
That's the consequences. That's Soup's
So
point.
you're not doing what
Let's move on.
you might get a DUI. That's what you just said.
Yeah,
Then we agree.
and you see that as a good thing. See, that's where we disagree. I think
yes,
people should be
it doesn't
allowed
matter,
to drive drunk if they know that they're not going to hurt anyone.
All
Well,
right.
that's the thing. Not everyone knows you're gonna hurt.
You can't know that.
Exactly.
It's
You can't
unknowable.
know that.
But when you do, there are consequences.
So I was
every
misunderstanding your point.
Every
a
time
little
you get into a car and drive, there is a chance you will kill someone.
bit. Yes.
Sure.
So I was
Every single time.
misunderstanding your point a little bit. I see now that you're not saying that you think that it stops people from you're not worried about it stopping people from actually drinking and driving. You know it does that. What you're saying is that they should still be allowed to drive while drunk if they want to, and it's their fault if they do anything.
Yes, the same way that people are allowed to drive, even if they know that they're bad at driving.
Hmm.
The same way,
Like Asians and
Yeah.
women.
yeah, like old people,
Or
like
old Asian
people
women.
know they're bad at driving, but they still drive.
Yeah.
Know they could kill someone, and
Sure.
occasionally they do.
Yeah, they do.
And they face the consequences because
Yeah.
that's a responsibility that they took on when they got into a car.
I think
Yeah.
that line of thinking.
I
It has
feel
to
that
have
same
people-
logic. I feel that same logic also applies to hate crimes. By the way, I
Yeah,
don't believe
that's
that
I agree
a
with
hate
you. This
crime
whole
should
time,
exist.
this
It's
whole
still a
time
crime.
I've had a
Hate
hate
crime or not.
crime in the back of my mind. Like, oh, I
I
just
have
attacked
also.
some random dude. I'm in more trouble now because he was black. Like,
Okay.
what?
You attack
It's
somebody
not
anyway.
that the person was black. It's that the police believe that you did it because he was black. That
Exactly.
you're racist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As if being racist in and of itself is a crime, which
Yes,
it's not.
it's not.
Just like
Not
being drunk is not a
necessarily.
crime.
No.
Except if you're in a car for some
Public-
reason, it is.
Well, if you're out in
That's where
public.
I'm saying the double
Right.
standard is.
Public intoxication is illegal.
If you're in a car with the keys in the ignition, it's illegal.
Yeah.
Even if you're not driving, like if you're sitting there stationary, if the keys are in the ignition and you're drunk, you can get a DUI.
It actually happened
What-
recently.
Hold on.
I've
They're
heard
on the
many such
news.
cases.
You're trying to say that if I'm drunk and I call a taxi, I can get a DUI?
No,
No, you're
if
not
in the
in-
driver's seat.
If you're not in the
I
driver's
just-
seat. Yeah.
Okay, so I heard a story. This guy comes home. His radio inside doesn't work. It's broken. So he goes out into his driveway,
Mhm.
gets into his car, gets a 6-pack, listens to the radio. Has to turn on the car to do that. You know,
Mhm.
keys are in the ignition. He's
Sure.
in the driver's seat because that's where you sit in the car that you own.
Sure.
He's drinking in his driveway on his own property. The cops are called because for some other reason, and they just happen to see
Maybe
him.
noise.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they just happen to see him. The cops are there for some other reason that's unrelated to him.
Uh,
But they decide to go over there and question him. And when they see the open containers of liquor in the car, they hear the engine running and they see the keys in the ignition. They immediately arrest him, give him a DUI.
Yeah, obviously,
I
that's
mean,
absurd.
I'm
But
against
he
that,
wasn't
but I'm
driving.
also still against drunk driving. Like I'm against that being a law, but I think driving while impaired should still be illegal because
So-
it causes so many accidents every year.
Does it?
yeah.
Yes,
It caught. But how do you know that was the cause of the accident?
because
You're just
Obviously,
assuming.
when you swerve
The
and
same reason why. The same
what do
reason
you
where
mean?
if a racist person beats up a black guy, you assume it was because of the racism.
No, because
No,
you can
Yes, you
tell
do. That's
some-
what a hate crime is. You assume.
We
Okay.
don't assume that.
I'm not
We
saying this.
assume
Okay,
I'm
say-
saying
okay.
society as a whole assumes
Sure.
that it was
That's like
because
a
of-
complete. That's unrelated because if you're driving while impaired and you hit someone and they die, and then usually when an accident like that happens, the cops suspect you're impaired. They do a DUI test on you. They have a breathalyzer. Oh, he's drunk. That's probably why he crashed in because
probably.
The key word there is probably though.
because
but
it's shown
Could've
the
driven-
rate
could've crashed while you were
the
sober, too.
possibility of you getting an accident increases when you're intoxicated while driving.
Exactly. It's just like how you were talking about earlier, how you wouldn't
That's why
want
it's
to
an
do
issue.
math and things like that while you're high because you know your brain doesn't work quite as fast on those types
know.
of situations.
And I
so you
personally-
are now limiting your own ability to drive no matter what. Either way, your ability is now limited.
Yeah.
That
That's
is
what
my
impaired
own.
means.
That's my own choice to make though. As a free American, I
It's
can
your own
make
choice that can kill someone, though.
Yeah, every choice I make can kill someone. Me driving
Smoking
over
weed in
here
your house
today
doesn't-
was a choice that could have caused someone to die.
Yes.
Every time.
But it would have been more likely if you would.
It's
you
all
would
about
killed someone if
reducing
you-
the chance.
there's
It's all
no-
about reducing the
there's no-
chance.
There's no way of you knowing that for sure, though,
Yes.
because the statistics are
Okay,
skewed.
so are you playing devil's
What do you mean?
advocate, or do you really think that if someone's drunk or someone's not drunk, they have the exact same chance of not crashing into something?
I don't believe that they have the exact same chance. I believe it varies on a person-to-person basis, and that's
Okay.
why there shouldn't be one law that encompasses all of it. Because personally, I don't trust myself to drive drunk,
No
nor do
one
I trust
should.
myself to drive while high,
Yeah,
because I know that I would make a mistake because I don't have much practice
because you
doing
have
that.
self-control and you're a person with a reasonable
So,
IQ.
It's not that I have. Okay, well, I also know people who drive drunk and high all the time, and they've never hurt anyone or
That's
got
the
into an
gauntlet I'm
accident while
talking
doing
about.
it.
That's the gauntlet I'm talking about.
What gauntlet?
The gauntlet I mentioned earlier, where they've been doing it for so long that they've skirted by the law. At this point, they've now put their risk of actually killing someone so low to where it's basically reasonable. But you get rid of all the people who can't drive while intoxicated. If I drive drunk
Don't
right
get rid of
now,
all those people. That's what I'm saying. Is most of them go under the radar and don't get caught, even if they are idiots and can't
exactly,
drive. Well.
only the worst of them get caught.
Yeah.
So isn't that good? Because they obviously
Not
were
only the
wrong.
worst of them get caught. In fact, I would even say that it's random who gets caught. It's just whoever happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
I feel like worse drivers that are impaired.
Say that about a lot of things.
Here's a hot take. I think the driver's test should be way harder. It should not be that
I think
easy.
there shouldn't be a
get a-
driver's test.
You're crazy.
Whoa.
You're
I
crazy.
think we can all agree here that Zupan's in the wrong.
Texas, that's the
totally
rule
wrong.
in Texas,
That-
ladies and gentlemen.
Under COVID, you don't have to take a behind the wheel test. You have to take a
Yeah.
written test, just like everyone else.
I remember in my horse and carriage and when America was founded, they made me get a little card that said I could buggy around.
horse carriages aren't
So-
capable of going 120 miles per
I'm
hour.
Yeah, but you're more likely to get run over by a fucking horse back then because they'll just bolt randomly.
I'm gonna
Okay,
take
you
a, I'm
won't
gonna take
die.
a stance that's between you two. I don't necessarily think that the test should be harder.
Revoked.
I think it should be different than it is, though. I think certain parts of it should be easier and other parts should be harder.
Such as
Well, there are certain pieces of information that they force you to memorize that are not relevant
Such
to
as?
any normal person, such as the blood alcohol content percentages that are legal.
Yeah, it all goes back
That
to
is-
drunk driving.
There we go.
Okay. If I know I'm not. I don't have a breathalyzer. Who has a breathalyzer?
People who have had DUIs.
Yeah,
Yes.
only those people. People who haven't had DUIs yet don't have a breathalyzer to fucking test themselves every time they drive.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
I know,
So
but-
memorizing those percentages is absolutely useless.
there is
You-
some
the rank
from
that
the
night,
yeah.
or you haven't.
Yeah,
There-
pretty much. Yeah.
Okay, so we have sadly lowered the alcohol to blood content allowed by about 4 times. It's only 0.08 right now, and it used to be
Well-
much higher.
I have a website
a
right here that a chart that shows what level your blood alcohol content is and what are the typical effects, the predictable effects on driving.
So we should outlaw driving while tired. We should outlaw driving while under the influence of coffee. We should
Sure.
outlaw driving while stressed. We should
Outlaw
driving
caffeine.
while angry.
Mm.
We should outlaw all these things are factors that affect the way you drive.
These are unenforceable regulations, so
Exactly.
Yeah.
but this is enforceable.
I mean, how
So,
many people,
so we could just draw an
how many
arbitrary
people,
line.
how many
It's not
people die
arbitrary,
from
it's-
from being high on caffeine while driving per year? Is it
They
more
don't
or
write down
less?
whether or not you were high on
They
caffeine
don't.
when you get into an accident. They don't test for caffeine.
I'm sure if they
Okay,
They don't
did,
care.
the numbers would be quite interesting. I am sure lots of road rage comes from people who are addicted to caffeine.
I would agree.
And it's bad.
Yeah.
Is it not?
Yeah.
There you go.
I've driven while I was absolutely exhausted, about to fall asleep, and
Yeah, it's bad.
in hindsight, that was a stupid decision.
That is-
Definitely hurt someone.
That is
Yeah.
more dangerous. than
But if I had gotten pulled
statistically
over
speaking.
and they did a breathalyzer, I would have come back clean, and therefore it would have just been any normal traffic
Yeah.
citation.
So here
I
was
mean,
where I
just
was-
because we can't enforce all of these doesn't mean we can't enforce the ones that we can enforce, like drunk driving, where it's easier to figure out if someone's intoxicated
why
while driving.
Should we have these double standards?
So
what
let
is
me
the purpose?
let me steer the conversation
Good.
back over to the numbers really quick here. I think it's sad that we're at 0.08 right now because if a normal person has 2 beers, they're now over 0.08. If someone if someone who weighs like 90 to 100 pounds, so like a smaller female or like a really small dude
Yeah.
has a beer, like if it's a Stone or an IPA, they very well may from that one beer be over 0.08.
Easily.
That's
So-
another.
Then just
yeah,
don't drive if you
that
plan
is
on drinking
actually
that.
that is actually another factor that they fail to take into account is
Uh-huh.
tolerance.
Yeah.
because
Well, you
body
can know your own
mass-
tolerance.
Yeah, but they
That's your
don't
responsibility.
take that into account when you do a breathalyzer.
Sure. But where I was getting at this
If
is
you do a breathalyzer and you have an extremely high tolerance, and you have a higher blood alcohol percentage, you can be less intoxicated than someone with a lower blood alcohol content who has a
so
lower tolerance.
this is where I was going with this though, is that since it's been lowered by so drastically to 0.08, if you now go to a restaurant, eat some food with some family, have a beer, and get pulled over later, you may be getting a DUI. If you admit that you had a beer, you will be
so
taken to the police station.
just
You
don't
will
say that you had a beer.
Yeah, first of all, just don't say you had a beer. But you might just end up getting a DUI from something like that. I think we need to raise that.
Yeah.
Or if we're not going to raise that, I don't agree with this, but the only way to make sure that that's not happening to people is to literally go to restaurants and be like, okay, like you can't serve any beer anymore because if you give someone a beer, a single beer, and they get arrested, their life is over. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like that's
Yeah.
way too far.
Like where the well, yeah,
I'd be
but
more
that's
fine
where
of
things are
raising.
right
I'd be
now.
more fine
Where
of
do you go with it?
raising the allowed BAC for someone while driving.
Yeah, it should
I'd be
be.
fine with that.
It should be about 15.
15, so 15 says
15% or
That's what they
0.15?
Yeah, for 0.15. 15%.
You're dead.
When you're a pickle. It's like slapping handcuffs on the seat.
Point-
box.
0.15%.
It's literally wine.
Exactly.
0.15% says far less muscle control than normal.
Yeah.
Vomiting may occur unless the level is reached slowly or a person has developed a tolerance for alcohol.
Mhm.
Major loss of balance. Predictable effects on driving at 0.15% is
Yeah.
substantial impairment in vehicle control, attention to the driving task, and unnecessary
So I
visual
was-
and auditory information
I was
processing.
reading these while here. I say bullshit because if 0.08 can happen after 1 to 2 beers, muscle coordination becoming poor, balance, speech, vision, reaction time, and hearing, harder to detect danger, judgment, self-control, reasoning, and memory are impaired from a beer. Bullshit.
Do you get
This
0.08
whole thing-
from a beer, though?
Depends if you're a 90-pound lightweight, then
Yeah.
yes, you absolutely will.
Okay, yeah.
But-
well, it just depends.
From 2 beer,
I'm
like
only
through
150
these
pounds.
through these 805s,
Uh-huh.
I would probably blow 0.7, 0.8, which that would be about that. If you got me right now after 2 beers, like boom, boom, I'd be well over because I just had them.
Would you say you feel the effects as it says on the website from being
No,
at 0.08?
That's
you
what
don't?
I'm saying. I don't
Okay.
feel that at all.
I mean, this is probably
God,
this is
no.
all like an average because like it's
Mhm.
different for everyone, so they have to just pick like an average.
That's-
Zero
I
point
mean, that's the main
two.
issue I have with it is that every person's different. Drugs affect each
Mhm.
person differently than they affect everyone else.
Mhm.
Therefore, we shouldn't just have one number that applies to everyone.
0.2.
In fact,
Some
I
law
see
It
that.
gets too complicated though. If,
I mean,
like,
that-
if they're
that's-
above this BMI,
that's
then
also
this is
why
your legal
for-
limit.
for
Exactly.
testing-
So
for
why
testing
don't
for
we just
DUI.
punish? Why don't we just punish crimes based on the results?
I
of the
think
crime?
what
It's
I've seen
preventative.
is a lot of
If
police
you killed
department.
someone, you should go to jail,
A lot of
regardless of whether you were drunk or not.
You do.
A lot of police
If you killed a
departments.
black dude, you should go to jail regardless of whether you
Sure.
were racist or not.
When
Okay,
you,
well,
when you
you-
mix
you
with
do,
the
though.
hate speech, I'm always going to be on the
You-
side of
You
we need
do,
to
but you go to
abolish
jail
hate speech.
longer if they find some reason to believe you were racist. You
Oh,
go
that's
to jail
absurd.
much longer.
That is
Same
absurd.
way, the same way,
But
if
that's
you
a
hit
different
someone
thing.
with your car, you
Mhm.
go to jail much longer
I mean,
if you were drunk.
I mean, there's already a charge for like if you're like I plan on killing this person, they just happen to be a black
Premeditated
person.
murder.
There's already a charge for premeditated murder.
Yeah,
Why is there another charge depending on if they're a specific race? You're like, oh, I don't like black people.
yeah.
Don't take that out. Of
I don't like
context.
this
That
person.
implies
I'm
that
gonna
it's
kill
illegal to be
them.
racist.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it
Exactly.
does.
Is it illegal to be like the same way it would be illegal to drink and drive?